Hey, Vinyl Community, Elliot here. Lazy Dogs Records. There's a thread going around that I'd like to participate in. 5 records that have never been shown in the vinyl community. It's hard to say that absolutely, but I doubt any of these have been shown. So here goes. I'll start with a band from the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, I believe, if not longer. Doug Clark and the Hot Nuts. And this is Hell Night, a reference to frats initiating members and things like that, I suppose. Doug Clark and the Hot Nuts were an R&B and comedy show that played a circuit of mostly southern college towns, playing frat parties and college town clubs, things such as that. uh, Notice it says adult comedy. And some say that from Animal House, the band on Animal House was in some part based on this group. Uh, the story I'll tell you about Doug Clark and the Hot Nuts is that when I was probably 12 or so, 11 or 12, brother a couple of years older than me, he had a copy of this album, and of course he had it hidden in the house from my parents in our room, and somehow they discovered this scandalous material here in our home, and we had a family meeting, and mom and dad were not happy, very upset that you have this. And I'm talking about brother, not me. I was totally innocent, of course, at that point. Uh, and just so upset and disappointed about that. And so we were getting a stern talking to. And then I don't know who it was. My brother may have said, "Well, play a little of it," or maybe mom or dad just decided to do it. But somebody went to the nice 1960s console stereo there in our living room and put the album on, and they were looking and shaking their head. They were throwing out these one-liners, this double entendre, sexual comedy and stuff like that, and they were just you could just see the disappointment in their faces. And then after about 5 or 6 minutes of this, suddenly both of them, both mom and dad, just suddenly and started laughing. They saw the humor in it. And I don't know what the punishment was that my brother received. I don't think he really got punished. I doubt they let him keep the record. But my parents were very rational people, and they weren't sticks in the mud, and they weren't prudish, and so they found the humor in it, and just didn't go overboard about it. But anyway, that's my Doug Clark and the Hot Nut story.
In the Garden of Eden stood Eve and Adam, stroking the loins of his madam. He smiled with mirth because he knew that on earth there were only 2 nuts and he had them. Now if there are any young girls in here, you better start walking because my friend John is liable to do some fancy talking. Nuts, hot nuts, you get them from the peanut man. Yeah, 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 nuts, hot nuts, you get them anywhere you can.
The next two I'll share with you are 45s. And this is a 45 from Bill Lyerly, and this is Quay Loaded. And on the flip side is Why I Want to Be a Cowboy. This would be probably from 1981 or 82, I would guess. Uh, Bill was a popular regional artist in Carolina, in North Carolina, and up into Virginia and other places too, I believe. Who would go on and sign with RCA for a bit and put out some 45s. Never put out an album. The RCA Nashville went through one of those reorganizations where they hired new people and they dropped a bunch of acts, and he was before he ever had an album released. He was dropped. But this is from Carolina Opry Productions. Carolina Opry House was a big nightclub in Greenville, North Carolina, that had bands like Bill Lyerly and Super Grit Cowboy Band, which Bill had been in before he went out on his own, and another popular act coming in and doing, 3 day stints like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, things like that. And they also brought in a lot of national acts. I know I saw during the few years I was there in the early 80s. I saw the Drifting Cowboys Band. I saw Bobby Bear. I saw Hank Williams Jr. there. And I saw Johnny Paycheck. And Bill had pitched Quaalude to Johnny Paycheck. And Johnny Paycheck had just had a hit with "Stay Away from the Cocaine Train," and so would be a natural for him. Now, if you don't know what we're referring to here, uh, Quaalude is referring to Quaaludes, and you can Google that if you don't know what Quaaludes are. But this is the early 1980s. Uh, Basically, it's a semi-autobiographical song about a groupie.
Okay, back in the 70s, there were these little things that would get you into trouble called Quaaludes. If you remember them, you probably weren't there. Or either you were there and you did them and you forgot what you did. But just for, as we say, shits and giggles, here's one called Quaalude again. Low down. She dropped one or two. She headed to the bar for a round. And then her eyes roll back. She don't feel no pain. Look out, she's coming, Lord, she's praying. God who was hanging on. She was always looking just like she used to move on and on. Well, I hope she doesn't lose. I couldn't understand. Oh, she had to go and get play one, Bear.
The next I'll show you is a album I picked up at a charity thrift. It's a classical album, a Christmas album from the North Carolina Symphony Holiday Festival. And no real label for this, but United Carolina Bank sponsored it, bankrolled it, I suppose, from 1988. So probably one of the last LPs that they would put out. Probably switched over to CDs around this time. But the conductor here is Gerhard Zimmerman, and he's musical director and conductor. Uh, James Ogle is the associate conductor, and Jackson Parkhurst is the assistant conductor of uh, of the North Carolina Symphony during this late 1980s period. And they do some stuff from Nutcracker, White Christmas, March of the Toys, uh, Christmas festival they do, Fantasia on green sleeves, which would probably be kind of interesting. But there we go. I doubt anybody's shown that one. Now, John at Digital Gramophone had he was the video that I saw to clued me into to this particular thread, and he noted that people were using this opportunity to show a lot of very rare and exclusive records, kind of a humble brag, or just a brag for some people. He's got a good sense of humor, and I get where he's coming from. Uh, but I can safely say I don't believe any of what I'm showing is a humble brag because I don't probably nobody else even wants any of these things I'm showing, and they're definitely not expensive records or exclusive records. Uh, I'll show another 45. Uh, Homer Briarhopper was a regional artist. He had a television show for 25 or 30 years in this area, in the Raleigh Durham area, where it was a morning show. And his band played and he would have guests, bands. And it was every day, every weekday, Monday through Friday. He did this. Uh, I know a little about him. He had a club for many, many years outside Raleigh called the Briarhopper Club, Country Music Club in the 1960s and 70s. Now, I had the opportunity to go to an estate sale. His daughter-in-law, he had long passed. He had passed away in 1980, I believe. Uh, just a few years ago, his daughter-in-law was moving to the coast, and so she had a huge auction that auctioned off much of the memorabilia from uh, her father-in-law's career. And I bought a lot of different things there from him. One of the things was a big box, not a big box this big, of 45s, uh, unopened box of, I guess it was probably 25 of them, 20 or 25 of them. But these would be 45s that Homer Briarhopper would sell at his shows and at the Briarhopper Club. And this is on the A side, Homer Briarhopper and his Jamboree Boys Chicken. And on the other side is what does the deep sea say? And this is on LRC Lamon Records, 45s that he would sell. So I thought that was really neat. An important artist from a regional standpoint. And the last record that I will show, I am a collector of uh, church LPs, youth choir, church choir, youth groups, things like that, albums that were put out, most during the LP era. So we're talking probably from that 68 or so to around 1980 or so, maybe a little bit uh, later, maybe a little bit earlier, but not much. A lot of churches took the opportunity to document the work that their choirs were doing in the form of albums. And this is from the Irwin Church of God Youth. Irwin Church of God Youth sing, and it's Why Should I Worry or Fret? Irwin is just about 8 miles, less than 10 miles down the road from me, I'd say. And well, oftentimes there's not a lot of details in on the liner notes. And fortunately, there is some detail in this one. And I learned that a man named Mr. Hayes Phillips from the church started the youth choir in 1961. And when they brought in a youth minister, Mr. Or the Reverend James N. Ward, and there's the Reverend James N. Ward. In 1969, he took over the youth choir, and Mr. Phillips became the assistant there. And the preacher there, the Reverend I.C. Morris Jr., there he is. He's the pastor there at Irwin Church of God. And they were able to organize this recording, and they did a great job with their youth there at the church. Not only did they have this big choir, but they also subdivided into various, quartets and small singing groups and things like that. Uh, I date this probably at about 1972 based on hair and clothing there. And this is on Century Records. Nice label. Century Records. Don't really know where Century Records is out of. But what I like about this particular record is that, as I said, it's not just the big choir, but you've got the Turnage Sisters doing a couple of numbers. There's the Turnage Sisters. And you've got the Ambassadors Quartet. These are all, members of the youth of the church. Ambassadors Quartet doing some. And you even have the music director at the church, Reverend Ward, Reverend Ward's the Ward family doing a couple. So what you got, about half the songs on here are the entire choir, and then there's a couple from each of these subgroups. So that's the Irwin Church of God Youth sings. Uh, I love this. This is all fun to do stuff like this in the vinyl community. This is what vinyl community is all about, people. Let's void all the negative and let's highlight the positive. And I remind everybody, be kind to your neighbors. And if you're not sure who your neighbors are, we're all neighbors in this world, folks. So love your neighbor. Take care.